What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to your home for all things combat sports.
Yo.
Guys, we have a great episode coming your way today. It's Freedom 250 Fight Week, and you know what that means. Nick and I are breaking down and predicting every single fight on the card. I almost said main card, but there's just one card in this one. 7 fights. By the end of this video, you will know who Nick and I are taking for each and every one of them. Individual fights in the timestamp below, but Nick, let's start from the top.
Let's do it.
Steve Garcia, 7-fight win streak. Diego Lopez pretty much doesn't lose unless he's fighting Volk these days.
That's right.
Really good fight. Really exciting fight. In my opinion, one of the closest fights to call on the card. Very good stylistic matchup. 2 really exciting guys. Steve, as we've said on this show multiple times, is kind of our dark horse for the division. He's really making some waves. How do you see, first off, technically this one going, and then who you taking?
Well, I love Diego Lopez, and I always love watching him fight, but I do think Steve Garcia is a very tough opponent for him. Steve does so many things so well. He is really good at controlling the center of the octagon. Also, the fact that he's a southpaw makes it very interesting because we know there are more orthodox fighters out there in the world than there are southpaws, and generally that means that the left-handed guy gets more open stance looks just in the gym every single day than the orthodox fighter. Now, of course, Diego Lopez has been training with left-handed fighters for sure in this camp. And not only doing that, but going over to Oklahoma, he's decided to move his camp completely over to the Oklahoma State area so he can be on the practice mats all the time. Maybe that means we see a little bit more wrestling out of Diego than we usually do. But Steve Garcia, his ability to always keep his head off the center line. He's constantly throwing volume. Every now and again, he'll put a big, heavy shot into his combinations, but it's really his ability to control the center of the octagon, keep his foot and his lead foot on the outside of his opponent's lead foot, and keep his lead hand on top of his opponent's lead hand, kind of controlling both the leg and the hand, which are very important in open stance, is what makes this fight so interesting because we've seen him fight several southpaws. We've also seen him fight several orthodox fighters. And one thing about Steve is he's very good at tracking his opponents down, forcing them to use the perimeter of the cage to avoid his power punches and power striking. But he's also really disruptive with his timing. You know, everybody knows that fighting is all about rhythm. And generally you can kind of pick up on both guys' rhythms after a couple minutes of a fight. But one thing that Steve does so well is he's able to break that rhythm, and he doesn't telegraph when he's about to start his combinations. Now, of course, like everybody else, he comes across and he looks for his long punches, his jabs, and his twos to make it to the target. But one thing he does really well is after an exchange happens and they start to bounce and get back into their rhythm, he jumps right back into a combination and usually starts it with something with no telegraph on it, very hard to read for his opponents. And I'm interested in seeing how he can make Diego Lopez more susceptible to getting hit in those sort of lull moments in between exchanges, because we know Diego Lopez is always down to plant his feet, bite down on his mouthpiece, and throw some shots in an exchange. But I want to see how he deals with Steve Garcia's ability to break timing, break rhythm, and then start to land his big shots right after you think he's basically finished off with an exchange or a combination.
Yeah, so I look at this fight stylistically from a couple different perspectives. I'm super hot on Steve Garcia. You know, anybody who's watched any of our videos knows just how highly we think of him. And I actually do think he's going to win the fight. I'll let that out a little bit early, and then I'll kind of back into how I got there. Diego Lopez, I do believe, is better with pure jiu-jitsu than Steve.
Sure.
He's a bigger submission threat. I also think he has the more one-punch sort of KO power. Now, Steve Garcia can finish people. He's gotten finishes in this 7-fight win streak, looked very good with his boxing. One thing that might surprise you, and this is really why I'm leaning towards Steve in this fight, who do you think has the better takedown defense and better takedown offense? And most people would say Diego Lopez, right? You think of him as a grappler. Steve Garcia has a slightly higher takedown defense, a substantially higher takedown defense, and even a slightly better takedown offense. And to me, that's not really a factor, because I think this fight is going to be dictated where Steve wants to fight it because of those two factors. It's going to be harder for Diego to get him down. Diego's not a pure grappler. The only way I can see Diego really having success, when I say pure grappler, I mean pure wrestler. Maybe training with Oklahoma State, things are a little bit different, and he's going to work some wrestling tactics. Maybe he sees that as a gaping hole in this fight against Garcia, and that's the bucket he needed to go fill in Oklahoma. And so maybe, we don't know. That's a big X factor in this fight, and that's what, if there is a reason that my prediction's wrong, I'm going to say that's it. It's because I maybe am underestimating a little bit the wrestling initiatives of Diego. But as it sits right now, Steve can defend a takedown, Steve can hit a takedown, and I think pretty much generally across all aspects on the feet, Steve's better. He's cleaner with his boxing. He's better with his cage cutting. He can back somebody up like nobody's business. He's really good at sort of blocking you off and not allowing you to really move and keeping you right in his crosshairs and landing big volume. He's also really crafty and disguises his power well. So he'll throw, a 3 or 4 punch combination, but you don't know which punch is going to really have the oomph on it.
Right.
He's really good at disguising that. Diego does kind of bite down and throw big, right? We know when Diego's throwing heavy, and Steve has pretty good defense as far as striking, seeing things coming and countering. Yeah. So it really kind of comes down to, and the reason I'm taking Garcia is because I believe he can keep Diego off his back and keep himself off the ground.
Yeah.
And when you look at the, skills on the feet and striking, yes, Diego's got the power and that's a factor, but other than that, really, where is he better than Steve in the striking? And that's why I'm ultimately taking Garcia.
Yeah, I think Diego Lopez needs to make this a full-blown MMA fight. I don't think he should go out there and try to strike for strike with Steve Garcia because, like you said, he's really deceptive with the way he times his power shots with the combinations that he throws. He's just an interesting character to deal with. And in 3 rounds, you don't have a lot of times to dissect his game, figure it out, and then plan your attacks. I think that scrambles is where Diego Lopez can really thrive in this fight. And if he's training at Oklahoma State, that means he's getting some really good wrestling looks. Now, wrestling and MMA are not the exact same thing. Wrestling is definitely one of the best bases you can have for MMA, but it is harder to get inside because the stance is different, the range is different. But you can also definitely utilize some good striking to get into that wrestling range. And from there, if he's really, just excelled on the wrestling mats and gotten his grappling to a level that he can control Steve Garcia, I think this fight can be very close, very competitive, and it could lean towards Diego. But I am actually taking Steve Garcia to win this fight. I think it primarily is going to be a striking match. He does such a good job at slipping down inside. Most of the time if you new to training MMA, when somebody starts throwing punches at you, the inclination is to move your head backwards and to get away from the punches. But what you actually realize after a few years on the mats is you have to slip down, especially in boxing situations. You have to slip past the punches. You can't pull back from all the punches because then they're going to use their footwork to track you down, come a little bit closer, and then find their shot when you're basically on your back leg and you don't have anywhere to go. You kind of get stuck in the mud when you're pulling back from everything. So Steve Garcia's ability to slip down to each side, he's never on the center line. He's always taking his head off center line. Sometimes there's punches that come off of those dip downs, and sometimes there's a full roll under any sort of hook that could come his direction. And that's why I see him being able to close the distance on Diego Lopez and land some strikes. Now, one thing we've seen Diego Lopez show in pretty much every fight he's been in the UFC is durability. Yeah. So I don't see this fight ending in TKO or in finish the way I see a lot of the fights on this card ending. I think Steve Garcia is going to win this fight. I'm going to say 2 rounds to 1, but Diego Lopez is the toughest match that he's had to date, and he's going to have to bring his A game. One thing I can say that would bode well for Diego Lopez is he doesn't really seem to fold under pressure, and we've never seen Steve Garcia in this high level magnitude of a fight. Now, neither has Diego Lopez because the Freedom 250 card is a 1-of-1. It's such a rare experience for everybody. So the jitters are probably going to be a little bit elevated for every fighter in the Oval Office preparing themselves. But we also know Diego Lopez has had 2 world title fights. So he's a little bit familiar with being a main event, with being the marquee guy on a fight night. So I think if Steve Garcia can wipe all the jitters away and he can come out and perform to the best of his abilities, he gets his hand raised via unanimous decision.
Yeah, I like unanimous decision too. I like 30-27. I think some of the rounds are going to be close. I think Steve's going to win all of them. I am taking the underdog here, if you can believe it.
There you
Steve
go.
Garcia, slight underdog over Diego Lopez by decision.
And one of the only dogs to really look at and really consider as a prediction for this card.
Well, yeah, and maybe that was a little bit of a foreshadowing of things to come, but there are some pretty lopsided matches, let's be honest. I don't think people will be too surprised at some of our predictions here. Maybe they will be. Who knows? They'll have to stick around to find out.
That's
right. Let's move into a big underdog, Kyle Dawkins.
Yeah.
Bo Nickel. You know, Bo Nickel was a guy who said, I'm on a trajectory to become a champion. Hamzat, Chechnyan wrestling's good. It's nothing compared to American wrestling. I'm going to show him there's levels to this game. There was big aspirations. In a lot of ways, there still are big aspirations for Bo. There's only 14 people that of a roster of 800 that had the opportunity to fight on the White House.
Yeah.
And he holds one of those slots. So it's less than 1%, way less than 1% of the UFC's fighters are, sorry, my math is off there. 1% would be 8. So less than 2% of the UFC's fighters, if there's 800 on the roster, are actually able to compete on the White House. So that shows you what they still think of Bo. Now, would Kyle have been on this card had it not been for the dance partner of Bo Nickel? Probably not. They weren't, pining to find Kyle Dawkins a position on the White House. So they were like, hey, let's offer him a tough fight, one where he's going to be a big underdog, and let's see if he plays ball. Dawkins is game. He's always down. And Bo Nickel, kind of showed us in the RDR fight that he's not invincible.
Right.
He doesn't have, Max Holloway level durability. He can be finished, and he can be finished by somebody who, RDR is a great fighter, but there's way harder power punchers and power strikers in the division than Rainier de Ritter. So all that being said, obviously Bo has perfect takedown defense. He's got really solid takedown offense. He hits a little bit harder than Kyle. Maybe you could make the argument that Kyle's slightly cleaner on the feet because he's been doing it a little bit longer, a little bit more experience, but still the numbers show Bo having the heavier hands. What do you think about this one?
So Bo Nickel is a polarizing figure, right? He got booed a lot at the press conference, but there are a lot of people that also like Bo Nickel, and President Trump is one of them. He's a big fan of Bo Nickel. I think the UFC also sees that there is a real high limit for how far Bo can go in this sport. And look, his skills are there. We all know how good of a wrestler he is. He's shown us that because his wrestling is so good, it has people concerned about that, which opens up his striking, and he's able to land some pretty big power punching as well. Now, the RDR fight was eye-opening because one thing we never see out of wrestlers is basically their inability to continue a fight. And it felt like he folded under the pressure. It felt like the bright lights were too much, or maybe the pressure and the damage was too much. And we never see wrestlers, we're always talking about how wrestlers are the most tough guys mentally in the sport. And I would agree with that. I think mentally wrestlers are just a different level because the training is so hard, and Bo Nickel has exceeded at the very highest level of wrestling. But I do think that if Kyle Dawkins is able to go out there and put the kind of damage that RDR was able to put on him, that we could see him potentially fold once again. If we saw it happen once before, we could see it again. That's why I think Bo Nickel is actually going to bring the skills that got him to the UFC into the cage at the White House lawn. I think he's going to wrestle. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean he's going to sell out. He's going to show up in a singlet and some ear guards and show up and try to wrestle Kyle Dawkins exclusively.
Right.
He's going to try to strike with him, but I think the striking will be a means to an end. I think he's going to try to use that so he can close distance, get inside, and do what he does best, which is wrestle. And one thing about his wrestling that most people maybe don't consider because he's not as credentialed in the submission realm, but his submission skills are very good too. He's not like this, old school wrestler that, knows everything about wrestling that you would need to know, but maybe doesn't understand the jiu-jitsu realm. He's very good with scrambling. Yeah. He's very good with hunting submissions in weird positions. And I think that Bo Nickel has the ability to get this fight to the ground and control it. Whether he does that or not will dictate if he wins this fight, but I do think Bo Nickel will get his hand raised. I'm kind of leaning towards a submission victory just because I think Kyle Dawkins, while yes, he's a little bit better on the feet and he's significantly more experienced in the UFC and in MMA in general, I think that he's going to get hit. I think that's going to open up some takedown opportunities for Bo Nickel. He's going to get him to the ground. Ground and pound is going to be brutal. A wrestler's top pressure is very hard to deal with. They know how to ride the wave and stay on top and make sure that it's position over submission all the time. Maybe that means a TKO finish comes, or maybe Kyle Dawkins scrambles enough to open up his neck or give a limb away, and then Bo Nickel finds a finish. I'm really leaning towards Bo Nickel to win this fight via finish. I'm going to go round 2. I'm going to go submission. I thought at first it was going to be a TKO from ground and pound, but I kind of feel like Kyle Daukaus is defensively sound, even if he is compromising on the bottom position. But eventually when you start to try to create space and get yourself back to your feet, that's where openings come up for submissions. And usually against wrestlers, that's not as big of an issue. But when you're talking about Bo Nickel and his ability to actually hunt submissions with his wrestling skills combined, that makes for a very tough night for Kyle Daukaus. I've got Bo Nickel winning round 2 submission.
Yeah, good call. I think Bo Nickel, his ability to add skills to his arsenal is pretty impressive. And I'll tell you kind of a personal story and experience that I had with Bo Nickel. Now, obviously, I don't know Bo. Yeah. However, it was, how many years ago was that? Maybe 6 years ago, 7 years ago, when we had just moved to Houston, there was a jiu-jitsu match that took place here.
Right.
Now, I was there to, support our jiu-jitsu instructor at the time, Lucas Valent. Yeah. Shout out to Lucas. Coincidentally, now the UFC BJJ lightweight champion of the world.
That's right. And the newest citizen of America. He officially got his stuff. So congratulations to you, Lucas.
Shout out. And, but the main event of that particular card, I think Lucas was like the feature bout or the co-main, was Gordon Ryan versus Bo Nickel.
Right.
Now, for those that don't know, because some people don't know jiu-jitsu as well as they know MMA, some people don't care as much about submission grappling, Gordon Ryan's the best, what they call no-gi submission grappler in the history of the sport.
Right.
And that's basically jiu-jitsu without the gi on.
Right.
Bo took on Gordon in a submission match. Now, Gordon had nothing for Bo on the feet, right? Gordon ended up basically turning his back to Bo and letting Bo suplex him, because I think the rules of engagement were he couldn't pull guard. He couldn't sit to his butt and try to do jiu-jitsu. He's like, I got to get this fight to the ground somehow.
Right.
I'm not going to take down one of the best wrestlers in the world, so I'm going to let him suplex me.
Yep.
Now, Bo suplexed him. What happened 5 seconds later? Gordon wrapped up a heel hook and had Bo tapping. Right. So Bo Nickel had no submission experience at that point, and he was submitted instantaneously on the ground. Now, fast forward 6-7 years, he is now a complete martial artist. Right. Now, is he as good of a striker in the division as Adesanya? No. Is he as good of a submission? Can he do a heel hook like Walter Walker? Of course not. But he's getting better in all aspects of the game.
Right.
And when you tie that together with the wrestling base that he has, it makes an opponent like Kyle Daukaus have a very difficult time.
Right.
You get him in there with a Chimaev who can defend the takedowns and say, maybe I'm a little better with the strikes. I'm going to stand and I'm going to box your ears off. Those types of matchups, or even a Sean Strickland who can prevent the takedown. But with Kyle Daukaus, I don't see any way that he's going to be able to prevent Bo from taking him down. I'm kind of leaning your direction, submission victory. I think Bo uses the double jab to a double leg and gets this fight to the ground right away, starts to open things up with some strikes. And it kind of depends. Does Kyle Daukaus turn his back? Does he flail trying to defend, or does he stay defensively shelled up? If he stays defensively shelled up, I think Bo will eventually get the ground and pound victory. If he opens up and tries to scramble, I think Bo will chase the back and probably get a rear naked choke.
Right.
Just hold me to it, feet to the fire, submission.
Okay.
First round submission, Bo Nickel. But it could be ground and pound for the, I think, plus 370 favorite in Bo Nickel.
And I think we're going to have a measured first round. That's why I've got it going at least into the second round, but I see the same outcome as you do.
Quick break in the action, guys, today to tell you about our sponsor, Kalshi, the predictions market where you can trade on real-world events, or in our case, MMA fights. And right now, if you can believe it, on Kalshi, Justin Gaethje only has about a 20% chance to win, according to the market. And for those of you that have followed his career, you know that counting him out has been a mistake in the past. But what Nick and I really love about Kalshi is that those of you out there that really know ball, the ones that understand this game at a deep level, are the ones that move the lines. Unlike sportsbook odds makers, which we've seen for far too long. And as a special thanks to the Barnhill Brothers viewers, Kalshi's giving away $20. All you have to do is download the Kalshi app and use the promo code Barnhill. So if you think you know MMA better than the crowd, download Kalshi and put your prediction to the test. Thanks to Kalshi, back to the video. Okay, perfect. So let's move into what is an even more lopsided fight as far as the odds are concerned. And I feel like Mr. Chandler is being somewhat disrespected here,
Iron
right?
Mike.
Almost a plus 500 underdog, like a 5-to-1 underdog. Yeah. And I get why, right? Mauricio Rufy is as clean as they come with the strike. He's one of my favorite strikers to watch, and he's got knockout power. He's got accuracy. He doesn't absorb as many strikes as Michael Chandler does, but it wasn't all that long ago that we saw Mauricio Rufy dominated on the ground by BSD.
That's right.
Now, Michael's not the submission artist that BSD is, but Michael Chandler, at his heart, is a wrestler.
Right.
He's as blue-blooded of a wrestler as it gets.
Yep.
And I think Michael Chandler still, it's like Lloyd Christmas, you know?
Yeah.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Yes.
Like, he hopes he can get that Conor McGregor fight. If he can shock the world on the White House lawn, he could be the next opponent for McGregor, depending on what happens with Holloway and what they decide to do from there. So I think either way, Iron Mike's almost 40 years old. He's not, he's friends with the president. He's a big, like, America, like, all-American dude.
Yep.
He's not coming to the White House lawn to have a boring fight or to lay an egg. He's coming to win this fight, and he's coming to win it early. He's going to be throwing bombs. He's going to be shooting double legs when the opportunity presents itself. He's going to be doing big ground and pound if he gets the fight to the ground. All that said, is that enough for him to get past the almost minus 600 favorite in Mauricio Rufy?
So obviously Mauricio Rufy is the more skilled striker, especially in the kickboxing and boxing range. But Michael Chandler knows how to turn any mixed martial arts competition into a dogfight. And he has fought the who's who of the 155 division ever since he got there from Bellator. He has always found a way to have moments against even the best fighters that the division's seen. And Mauricio Rufy may stand out as the best striker that Michael Chandler has ever pulled to fight in his UFC career. But at the same time, he has found ways to make it competitive and very entertaining every single time he's out there. That's why he's on the White House card, right?
Yeah.
Of course, they want to see an American get their hand raised against a Brazilian like Rufy, but we also know that regardless of win or loss, that Michael Chandler is going to show up. He's going to entertain the fans. And if he can get an opportunity to get on the microphone, he's going to cut a Conor McGregor promo, and that's always good for business. So I'm very excited to see how this fight goes, because if he can have moments against the type of guys that he's had, he had a beautiful head kick victory over Tony Ferguson.
Yeah.
I mean, we always think back to, like,
That was the decline, Tony, but still, you know.
Decline Tony, but still, it was a beautiful technique that ended up landing perfectly. The still shot of Tony Ferguson's face frozen, where it's just like
he turned him into a cartoon character.
It was insane. Now, it's almost more impressive than the spinning heel kick that Rufy landed on Bobby Green. You know, I would put those two as two of the most epic head kick knockouts in the lightweight division in its history. It was impressive. So I think his ability, obviously we know Michael Chandler loves to track you down and try to use a ton of pressure. Occasionally that winds up leaving him exposed to open, clean shots. If you've got a really precise striker like Mauricio Rufy, he's going to be able to move around, stay on his bike, stay long, jab when he needs to, feint when he needs to, and ultimately find his big power shots, whether it's from his legs or his hands. But Michael Chandler is also really explosive. He's one of those guys that's a compact frame. He's kind of hard to hit because he's so compact and he's got a high guard. He usually knows how to keep his hands up. And even if he is running towards you with reckless abandon, he usually is able to eat a couple shots to make sure he's landing his big ones. So I understand why he's such a big underdog in this situation, but I do think there is a real chance that he could shock everybody. I also think that whether it's mounted pressure that he's applying to himself and trying to win in front of, you know, the president of the United States on the White House lawn against a foreigner, that could either be it's a double-edged sword. It could either be a blessing or a curse for him. Because if you wind up putting too much pressure on yourself and you're out there just, you know, moving a little bit too fast, or you have fast feet, or you're a little jittery, that could end up working really well for Mauricio Rufy to pick his shots and find your openings when you're kind of leaving yourself wide open, which Michael Chandler does in every fight. But if he's also able to go out there and sort of put Mauricio Rufy on his back foot through power, and then also chain in some wrestling and try to, you know, put some shots on him. Obviously, we know that Mauricio Rufy's takedown defense is very good, but Michael Chandler has the ability to at least change levels, push you up against the cage, wear on you a little bit, and that's where he comes to life, right? That's where his bombs of hooks get to throwing. Yeah. And that's when he's always really most dangerous. So I'm kind of stacking the deck towards Michael as far as the way this fight could go, but I also see the real skill that Mauricio Rufy has. And then the secret weapon for Mauricio Rufy is the fact that he was with a very good camp in the Fighting Nerds, and he left the Fighting Nerds to go to Australia. That's not a far traveling situation for anybody. That is going across the globe to find the right training partners. He's going to have Volkanovski in his corner. And one thing we've always said about this on this channel is Volkanovski is one of the greatest minds in the sport. He's got some of the highest fight IQ. And if he can figure out how Michael Chandler's going to move, how he's going to come and approach this fight, and he can help Rufy dissect it, and even better, give him the right instruction from the corner, that could be a recipe for disaster. And that's why I think the secret weapon of Volkanovski is what's going to give Mauricio Rufy the advantage here. I see him getting another highlight reel knockout. I'm going to go round 2, highlight reel KO. I think instead of doing it with his feet this time, he's going to do it with his hands. He's got really good boxing, and we know Michael Chandler comes in like a tank. He's very durable, but at the same time, he does get hit a lot. And Mauricio Rufy is going to put enough volume in his face to get him biting on feints, to get him biting and reacting on everything. And once that happens, we're going to see something big uncorked, and it's going to be all she wrote, unfortunately, for Mr. Chandler. But the good news is, win or loss, I believe if Michael Chandler gets another fight in the UFC, regardless of how Conor McGregor's next fight goes with Max Holloway, those two guys will be fighting, and it's only fair that the UFC gives him that opportunity.
Well, yeah, I mean, he definitely, I guess it's a consolation prize to get to fight on the White House lawn, which is something that's really big for Chandler, but we know what the real fight is that he wants, and it's McGregor. I almost thought you were going to pick Chandler, though. You swerved me at the last second. You were like building him up and telling me, I'm just like sitting here thinking, should I second guess my prediction? And then you went in the direction that I expected you to go, which is to pick Rufy, which I'm going to also do. I think Volkanovski does play a big factor into this as far as training with Rufy. Volkanovski, we saw famously in the Islam fight, has pretty damn good takedown defense.
That's right.
So what is Chandler really good at? Wrestling. We talked about that. He throws big bombs and he'll try to wrestle you. Rufy was susceptible to that, as we saw in the BSD fight. Hopefully he's kind of worked on some things. I assume that he has with Volk. And Volk, yes, as you said it, he's one of the most brilliant minds in this sport. I think Volkanovski is one of the rare people who has it physically and he has it mentally as well, where he really understands this game at a deep level and can articulate it, and his camp is very good. So I think I love the Fighting Nerds. Carlos Prates is among my top 3 favorite fighters in the world right now. Right. But I do think at the same time, Mauricio made the right call leaving and going and working with Volk, because his problem was never the striking. And the Fighting Nerds were a really striking heavy camp. Go and learn some different aspects of the game where you can also button up some things that you may not be as good at with the striking. And I think when it comes down to it, he's more accurate than Michael Chandler. He's got a higher knockdown ratio, higher knockout ratio. He's really clean with all strikes. And Chandler throws these big looping shots as he comes in. He's going to get caught with one of them, and it just is a matter of when. I think Rufy's going to be good enough on the takedown defense. I think he's going to show us a wrinkle in his game that he actually has improved upon, which is going to keep the fight standing. And then sometime in the first or second round, he's going to catch a clean shot. And Michael Chandler's almost 40 years old. He's been doing this a damn long time. He's been in some wars. We know the chin doesn't get better with age, especially as you get close to that 4-0 number. Mauricio Rufy, first round knockout.
I like the pick, and Rufy was controlled by BSD, but that was the BSD that really did button up his game plan and decided, I'm not going to go out there, and even though I'm the god of war, I'm not going to go get in wars. I'm going to use a systematic game plan to try to win these fights. It's exactly how he beat Rufy. And while I think that was a great move for BSD, I also see it as too little too late for Michael Chandler to approach fights any differently than he has approached them since he got into the UFC. He's always going to bring one of the most entertaining fights on any card he fights on, but that's also not going to bode well for him if he's not willing to adapt his game plan into a super wrestling heavy, super grappling heavy style where he needs to get to a top position like mount or even half guard or something like that and just rain punches down, kill the confidence and momentum of Rufy. If you can do that, I can see a chance for Michael Chandler to win this fight, and I want to pick Michael Chandler, but above that, I want to get my predictions right. That's why I'm going with Mauricio Rufy to win this one, and I think it's going to be one of the best fights on this entire card.
There we go. All right, homie. You ready? You ready for the next one?
I know where that accent's coming from.
Josh Hokett.
Yes.
Derrick Lewis. So both of these guys ready to get in there, ready to put hands on each other.
Oh, yeah.
Derrick Lewis saying that, he doesn't mess with all that talk. He's like, I don't even understand what this guy's saying.
Right.
And I've never seen him fight, but my coach told me he's a wrestler. And, while I don't know whether that's true or not, maybe you have some insight. And I guess that's a good place to say that our discussion here and prediction may come with a slight tinge of bias because you've been a part of Derrick Lewis's camp, helping him out in the gym and working with crew Bob Perez and such. So we know him on a personal level. But this is a tough fight for him, right? He's a big underdog. Josh Hokett, very good. And one thing I liked out of Josh Hokett's mouth, because he gives us these glimmers of showing us that he's a normal human being at times, right? Where he's like not running the act. And when the interview he did with Chael Sonnen and a couple times at the press conference, he sort of broke the fourth wall and broke character a little bit and just talked from Josh Hokett, not the Cholo character that he plays or the Macho Man Randy Savage, but Josh Hokett actually came out to say a few words. Yeah. And he said, basically, I'm crazy, but I'm not that crazy. When asked, are you going to stand and bang with Derrick Lewis? He's like, of course, I can't fight Derrick the same way that I fought Curtis. Curtis doesn't have the type of one-shot knockout power that Derrick has. I cannot stand in front of the Black Beast and trade shots with him. That would be really, really low IQ to do. First of all, Derrick is almost 300 pounds. He cuts to get to 265. Derrick is one of the ones that has to cut to make weight. Hokett is a small heavyweight. So he knows that he's undergunned as far as just pure knockout power goes. Now, he also said that Derrick Lewis tends to quit in fights. If he gets, runs into some adversity, he'll tend to give up. So what I need to do is kind of, fight intelligently, work my jab, move around, push the pace, and then use takedowns if I need to, use wrestlings when I need to. And that coming out of Josh's mouth, if you're cheering for Josh to win, which I won't be because Derrick is a friend, but I still like Josh. But if you're cheering for Josh to win, that's exactly what you want to hear. You want to hear, okay, he's a normal guy at the end of the day. He's going to fight intelligently. He's not a dummy who's going to go in there and try to fight Derrick like he fought Curtis. Because if he did, he would go to sleep. Make no mistake about that. But that being said, and understanding Hokett's game plan being a little bit different, you've been around Derrick this camp. So maybe you have some insight that I don't have. Who are you picking in this one? So how do you see it going first, rather? Yeah,
so I think Derrick Lewis versus Josh Hokett is going to end in round one. I just see it that way. Now, it can go either way, truly. And I'm leaning towards Derrick Lewis. I'm predicting Derrick to win. He's a friend of mine. I've been with him for probably the last 10 fights that he's had. Ever since I got to Houston and got to Main Street, I've been sort of in the room with him, and then we've built a relationship since then. And I will say this camp has been probably the best that I've ever seen Derrick, both physically and mentally. And I know he's older. He's over 40 years old. And people have been concerned about his back issues and some aches and pains that all fighters have. But once you're a heavyweight, like such a big frame guy, and you're in your 40s, it's a little bit difficult to get back up every day, especially after tough fights constantly for years in the heavyweight division. But Derrick, it really does seem like mentally and physically, this is the best we've seen him in quite some time. He's sharp. His hand speed is really fast right now. His stance is going to be a little bit different than what we've seen in the past. Sometimes at heavyweight, you see guys sort of just flat-footed and waiting to land in an exchange. Derrick Lewis is really looking sharp right now. He's able to figure out how to move in a slightly smaller frame, how to use his footwork to get inside and close the distance, because we all know Derrick needs one shot to put Josh Hokett's lights out. So the reason I think that this fight's going to end in one round is because Josh Hokett prioritizes entertainment over everything. And that's why he's on the White House card. The fight with Curtis Blaydes was the fight of the year, in my opinion. The best heavyweight fight I can think back in recent memory that we've seen. And good things happen to guys that put on good performances. What he did obviously earned him a shot on the White House on the biggest fight card that the world's ever seen. They're predicting 1 billion people globally will tune in to watch this. And Josh Hokett knows, I'm going to be the guy, because none of these other guys on the card are really that entertainer, but I'm trying to be that entertainer. So if he goes out there and tries to stand and trade with Derrick, it could go very bad for him very quickly. But if he uses a little bit of that same style he brought with Curtis Blaydes, and if you look back at the very beginning of that fight, there were some really good feints. He'll feint a level change, and then he'll throw an overhand over it. And he's got power, but he doesn't have single shot KO power. So it's not enough for him to just land that big shot. What he has to do if he wants to beat Derrick is land that big shot and chain it immediately into wrestling. He's got to use those level change feints to get Derrick biting on him. And then every now and again, after you put some heavy hands on Derrick, get inside, take your shot, and try to get the Black Beast to the ground. If he doesn't do that, I see Derrick being able to find his shot. Derrick has the most knockouts in UFC history for a reason. He might not be the most technical guy in the world, but one thing's true, he has the most power in the UFC, the most power the UFC's ever seen. And he can change anybody's fight in one single shot. So Josh Hokett cannot afford to have the lazy high guard. He cannot afford to have the lack of head movement that he had against Curtis Blades and expect to get out of this fight without being, taken out unconscious. Derrick Lewis, though, does have an issue if he does start to deal with some wrestling out of Josh Hokett. If Josh is able to change levels, he's able to show a little bit of grappling, that could be a very hard situation and proposition for Derrick Lewis to dig out of. But I'm a Houston guy. I'm a Main Street guy. I believe in the camp. I believe in Coach Bob Perez. I believe that Derrick Lewis is as dialed as he's ever been. And look, we've seen Derrick at the highest stages of the UFC. We've seen him on big moments. President Trump is the guy that asked for Derrick Lewis specifically to be on this card. It didn't matter who it was going to be against. Now, the fact that it's against arguably the most entertaining guy in the sport right now in Josh Hokett makes it even more fun for everybody. But the thing is, Derrick Lewis was meant to fight on this card, and I don't think he's going to let the big moment get to him. I think he's going to look for that single kill shot. He's going to prioritize quality over quantity. He's not going to overthrow volume and then wind up compromising his base. I see Derrick Lewis getting a first-round knockout over Josh Hokett, and then we know, however this fight ends, whether Hokett wins or Lewis wins, the best piece of content coming from the microphone while Joe Rogan's holding it in the octagon is going to come off the heels of the winner of this fight, whether it be Derrick Lewis or Josh Hokett. Because while Josh Hokett is a hot commodity right now, Derrick Lewis is the king of going viral on the microphone with Joe Rogan.
Well, you got that right. And boy, do I hope your prediction is right. And I trust that you've seen some things that maybe the world hasn't seen.
Yes.
And I haven't. Unfortunately, I have not been in the gym nearly as often as you have. So, man, I would love to see Derrick win.
Yeah.
Josh Hokett's really good.
Yes.
This guy was an NFL player.
Yeah.
Running back. He was a running back, linebacker, played both sides of the ball
At
in
Fresno
college.
State, yep.
And he wrestled. Like, I don't think people, Brendan Schaub mentioned in his podcast, I don't think people understand how difficult it is to play college football. And then you're playing on both sides of the ball.
Insane.
And then you're doing that and you're wrestling and you're competing at a high level. You're not just wrestling, you're doing well as a collegiate wrestler. I say all that to say Josh Hokett is an extreme athlete to the highest order. Yeah. Derrick Lewis, not so much. Now, Derrick Lewis is probably the hardest puncher that the world has ever seen. I mean, I think that's pretty evidenced in the fact that he's got more knockouts than anybody in heavyweight history. He's put people to sleep. Curtis Blades, who just had that war with Josh Hokett, it took one shot for him to do what Josh Hokett couldn't do in 200 shots, right?
And he had Francis Ngannou unwilling to engage with him.
The Predator, the only person in Francis's entire career, and listen, that fight sucked. Let's be real. But who do I blame more for that? And maybe this is biased, but I blame Francis more because Derrick is a counter striker. Derrick was waiting to look for his counter strike. Francis never brought that attack.
That's
and we've never seen anybody in that octagon that Francis wasn't afraid to come across and just start throwing bombs, except for Derrick Lewis. So I think that it's a very, very, very dangerous fight for Josh Hokett. But Josh is an extreme athlete. He's got the wrestling, which is an Achilles heel for Derrick. Mm-hmm. He's got the volume. He is a little bit shorter, so he's gonna have to get inside to start landing that jab. That's the concern. You think about a Ciryl Gane, how he beat Derrick. He was very long, even Salsa Boy, very long behind a jab, can kind of keep Derrick at bay. Josh is going to have to get a little closer to the beast in order to get those takedowns and find those kill shots. So it is a dangerous fight, but I keep coming back to Josh having more ways to win. And Derrick, in his last couple of fights, hasn't looked like the Derrick that we knew when we first met him. So, I love to hear that you say he's dialed. That makes me very happy and encouraged. But I'm not to the level yet where I'm going to say I think he's going to win the fight. So I think Josh Hokett by technical knockout, ground and pound sort of situation in the third round is going to be my call for you. I think Derrick's going to make it through a couple. I think Josh is going to, I think the first round may actually be a little bit lackluster because I don't think he's going to come across and do what he did to Curtis. I think he's going to kind of wait and see. We know Derrick's a counterpuncher, so Josh is going to be feinting and seeing what reads Derrick makes. Derrick's going to kind of be waiting for the counter. The first round may come and go without a whole lot of activity, and then that's where I think in rounds 2 and 3, Josh is going to start to find, okay, I think I can get in with this timing. I think I can get in with this cadence, and then start to work that, and ultimately get a takedown and then finish the fight via ground and pound. He's not really a submission guy, or I maybe lean towards submission. I think ground and pound, third round ground and pound TKO victory is my final call.
Yeah, and Derrick Lewis is also very hard to submit. So if he does wind up getting Derrick Lewis to the ground, he's going to have to ground and pound him to get, to win that fight. He's not going to get submitted. My question is Josh Hokett overlooking Derrick Lewis? That could be the biggest issue. He's starting beef with Pereira every opportunity he gets. From the press conference where he basically started a fight and had the entire press conference ended, to getting on the escalator just yesterday and calling him, the P word and saying he's going to chama on your mama right to Alex Pereira's face, kind of punking Alex Pereira. And look, sometimes just, turning a blind eye is the way to do it. But Alex Pereira does feel like he needs to clap back a little bit at Josh Hokett, or Josh Hokett's going to keep 10-8ing him in these public interactions that they're having.
It's a full-on onslaught at this point. I mean, you would think he's fighting AP the way he's talking. Like, Derrick Lewis is not even in, Josh Hokett's purview right now, and that is a great point. Is he overlooking Derrick?
Because if he's overlooking Derrick and he's planning more for Alex Pereira, or he's got his mind set on Alex Pereira a little bit more, that could be very detrimental to him. And like I said earlier, Derrick Lewis only needs one shot to put Josh Hokett's lights out. And everything that he has planned for Pereira and the future of his UFC career would all disappear very quickly, and he'd have to go back to rebuilding. He would lose his undefeated record if Lewis beats him. But Pereira is obviously the guy that he's gunning towards. I think that tells me who Hokett thinks is going to win the heavyweight interim title fight between Gane and Pereira, and he's sort of hedging his bet that, okay, if Pereira can win this fight and I can beat Derrick Lewis, there's your next title fight. Forget what Tom Aspinall's doing. I don't care if he can see or not. It doesn't really matter. He's irrelevant at this point. They might even strip him and make that for an undisputed if Tom can't come back soon. But if Hokett is underestimating Derrick Lewis, it could end up very bad for him. And I don't know if he's going to get the sort of return from Alex Pereira now or ever. And Alex Pereira even came out and said, I heard a little ruffling in the background that they're going to cut Josh Hokett because of all these antics.
Chance.
There's 0% chance Josh Hokett gets cut from the UFC because of his antics. When you have a guy that's willing to entertain to the highest level, shows up and fights the way he fights, constantly going viral for all sorts of things. Love him or hate him, he's here to stay, and I think he's going to be a real problem for the heavyweight division for a long time because of that athleticism that no other heavyweight has and his ability to garner attention from the crowd.
But you don't think he's winning this time?
I don't think so.
Well, let's move into the feature bout. So it's a 7-fight card. This would normally be where we're calling the main event. We still got 3 more to go here. Yeah. So this is going to be a great. I cannot wait for this. And guys, by the way, we are going to be doing 3 live streams this weekend. We're going to go live Friday after the press conference, Saturday after the ceremonial weigh-ins, and then Sunday, obviously, we'll have a fight companion style show for the fight itself. We hope to see all of you there, and we thank each and every one of you, especially our premium members. We're starting to have them trickle in now, so thank you guys so much. Y'all are the real MVPs.
Come hang out.
And we have good things coming for the premium members. Stay tuned. We're working on some things there. But last 3 fights, right? So Sean O'Malley, Eamon Zahabi.
Yeah.
Again, another lopsided one. So we have Rufi, massive favorite. Hokett, massive favorite. O'Malley, also pretty massive favorite, and then obviously the main event. So there's a lot of lopsided as far as odds are concerned fights on this card. Now, Eamon Zahabi is a really good fighter, right? Faraz Zahabi, his brother, is a brilliant mind, runs TriStar Gym, responsible for, in large part, George St. Pierre's career and managing that. So, he's a very good coach, and he can look at any fighter and game plan appropriately for them. Why do I think Sean is such a big favorite? Well, Eamon, I think I looked up the statistics before this. He's like a 0.12 takedowns per fight.
Okay.
Which basically means that he doesn't take people down.
We're going to stand up and strike. Yeah.
If he gets somebody to the ground, he can do okay. He can have decent control time. He can chase ground and pound subs and things like that. But Amin Zahabi, for the most part, is a striker.
Right.
And Sean O'Malley is an elite striker for bantamweight. You know, and a lot of people don't think that because they don't like Sean. But I think if you strip the persona and the hair and the tats away and you just looked at Sean for who he is, he's a very, very high-level striker. And Amin Zahabi is a little bit more of a predictable striker. He's very high guard, you know, kind of plots. And Sean O'Malley, I feel like he's the right type of opponent for Sean to get a highlight reel knockout. And Sean said, it's been a long time since I cooked up a famous Sugar Show kill shot like he did against Aljo, like he did against, you know, many people in the past. And you know, even the Contender Series, how he won his contract, just a beautiful 1-2. I forget the gentleman's name that he knocked out. Doesn't really matter.
O'Malley.
But yeah, it got Snoop Dogg saying that.
Yep.
So Sean is at any point in time can land a one-punch KO. Amin Zahabi, not so much. Amin's kind of a decision guy. Sean can also eke out a decision if he needs to. So I find this to be a favorable matchup for O'Malley. And before I give you my prediction, I want to hear what your thoughts are.
Sugar Sean O'Malley is long overdue for a highlight reel KO, and we need to see it. And Amin Zahabi is the perfect candidate to be on the receiving end of that. So Amin is a great fighter. 7-fight win streak in the UFC's bantamweight division. We all know how stacked that division is. But Sugar Sean O'Malley has way more experience fighting guys that fight like Amin Zahabi than Amin has fighting guys like Sugar Sean. I put Sugar Sean in a very high category and very rare air for elite level striking. And I really chalk it up to him being an innovator. You know, every once in a while we see somebody come in with a few different tactics or tools that they like to utilize. And while he's throwing the same punches as everybody else, a great 1-2, his hooks are great, uppercuts are beautiful, he can throw knees, spin attacks really well. None of that is new. But the way he sets his shots up, the way he's able to manipulate range, the way his footwork is that of like a high-level athlete that doesn't come from combat sports, but maybe could have done something in a basketball or football. I know that Sean O'Malley's too small to play any other major sport like that, but his footwork is very high level. He's an athlete and he knows how to find his target. I think his eyes are one of the secret weapons as well. He can see shots coming really well. He knows how to get out of range. He knows how to then get right back into your face, and his wide arsenal of tools that he's able to utilize against guys. And it doesn't matter if it's world champions like Peter Yan or it's guys that were unranked on his way to the rankings and then ultimately to the belt. He's been able to implement his game. He's been able to implement his style of fighting and control and dictate the pace of the fight. And that always bodes well for Sean O'Malley. I think that Sean O'Malley is going to give us a highlight reel KO. I don't think that Amin Zahabi's, even though he's defensively sound, that he's going to be able to deal with all of it, mostly because he stands in a pretty bladed stance. At times we'll see him get square, but against Sean O'Malley, that's a very dangerous proposition because Sean O'Malley on a square opponent using his push kicks, his teep kicks. He's really good at stomping down on that lead leg to get you to come in with pressure. Ultimately, then he finds a big power shot over the top. Really good at knowing exactly what his opponent's going to do, what makes them tick, what aggravates them, what forces them to bite down on the mouthpiece and really try to take his head off. And he's always defensively sound, ready to get out of the way of that stuff. So I think Amin Zahabi is going to wind up getting his legs chopped up. It's going to frustrate him a little bit. That might cause him to get a little bit more centered, which would open up the push kicks and the teeps right down the center line for Sean O'Malley. And then eventually, once you've got him concerned about the bottom half of his body, that's when the strikes up top really start to matter. And one thing that Sean does better than almost anybody in the sport is feint. He can look at your legs for a second and then put something on you. He can drop down an uppercut just for a split second to make you think about it, and then he comes over the top with that very same hand. He's so high level with his feints, and he gets the respect by putting powerful shots and a wide variety of shots on you, and that's usually what freezes his opponent. So I see Sugar Sean O'Malley probably going to have to get into the third round for this one, but I do predict a lot of finishes on this card, and I think Sean O'Malley is going to have one of the best, if not the best, highlight reel KO of the night. I've got round 3, TKO finish over Amin Zahabi for Sugar Sean.
Yeah, same. Round two is what I'm taking. I think Sean's going to, use the first round to throw some shots out there, to feint, to pick up the reads of Amin, and then he's going to have in his mind, starting round two, what shot he wants, what shots he needs to get that beautiful Mona Lisa KO that he wants on the White House lawn.
Yeah.
He's going to take it out in the second round TKO. Sugar Sean O'Malley gives us one of his famous highlight reel knockouts again.
And then a famous, I love you, Joe Rogan.
Yes, of course. Yeah, he says that every time.
Yeah,
so main event and co-main event. And guys, before we get into the main and the co-main, Nick and I do deep dives on big fights coming up. And so we'll link in the description. We did like 45-minute episodes on both of these fights where we got into the absolute weeds on Gane versus Pereira and Topuria versus Gaethje. So if you want to hear, over an hour and a half's worth of content on these two fights alone, those videos will be in the description. Obviously, today will be an abbreviated version of that. However, we didn't make predictions on those videos because we were saving that for today. So we will make our predictions after we, have broken the fights down. Pereira versus Gane, odds-wise, the closest fight on the card.
Yeah.
This is basically a pick 'em. Pereira's like minus 112, 115. Gane's like minus 100, minus 105. So slight favorite would be Pereira. But those odds I expect to continue to move and shift. I'm constantly checking Call Sheet to see who the favorite of the moment is. So when they enter the octagon, who knows who will actually be the favorite in this fight? And for good reason, because there's so many variables and so many unknowns. We know Alex has tremendous power. And we know just common sense would tell us he's going to have more power when he doesn't have to weight cut, right? And from what I've seen in his training footage, his hand speed doesn't look like it's suffered from the weight gain. So I expect this to be the best AP we've ever seen. Now, Ciryl Gane, could he ever have made 185 in his life?
No.
Probably not since he was a teenager, right? Yeah. So Ciryl Gane is the naturally bigger guy. Ciryl Gane doesn't look like he's purposefully gained weight. He looks like he's his normal size.
Yeah.
Alex looks like he's purposefully gained weight for this fight. How's that going to play into this? Ciryl Gane is the more light on his feet, quicker jab, stick and move type of guy. Alex Pereira is the knockout guy. Now, why do I have hope for Pereira if this fight goes long? Well, Pereira showed us against Khalil Roundtree in the fourth round, against Yuri in the second round. Obviously, he did a lot of work in the first round against Izzy, I believe, in the fifth round. Was it the fourth or the fifth round that he finished Izzy the first time? So, he can finish a fight late. So he's looking for a few kill shots against Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane, I think, his best path to win this fight is a decision. I think if he sticks and moves and he uses his superior footwork and his superior quickness, because I think he's a little bit faster than Pereira, he can have some success and he can win this fight. Alex Pereira, and we did see Tai Tuivasa knock Ciryl Gane down.
Right.
So while a lot of people are sharing that, saying it's justification, you think this guy's the guy that's going to beat AP, it's a great point to make, right? But this is cage fighting. You can't do MMA math. Just because Tuivasa was able to knock down Gane does not mean that AP will be able to. But Pereira's got 25 minutes to get a finish on a guy who I think is going to strike with him for 25 minutes. So that bodes well in Alex's favor. What are your thoughts and who are you taking?
Alex Pereira versus Ciryl Gane is the hardest fight to predict on this entire card.
By far.
And the prediction markets are all telling us that because this is the only one where it's truly a pick 'em. We don't know how this one's going to go, mostly because we haven't seen Alex Pereira at heavyweight. And yes, he's one of the best strikers the UFC's ever seen. Dana White said that he will be the GOAT if he gets his hand raised over Ciryl Gane. I disagree with that, but I also know Ciryl Gane is a very hard puzzle for anybody to solve. And usually you have to go back to guys like John Jones, who realized very quickly that Ciryl is a nightmare matchup for anybody on the feet. But if you can get him to the ground, or if you can get control of him, you are going to take him to somewhere where he has a massive hole in the grappling, and that's where you can exploit him. Unfortunately, Pereira doesn't have that same set of skills, so he's going to have to get this done on the feet, which makes it a very interesting fight. We've also seen, you mentioned that Tai Tuivasa was able to drop Ciryl Gane. Israel Adesanya was able to KO Alex Pereira.
Yeah.
And while I don't think that, Tai Tuivasa and Izzy are very similar at all, they certainly aren't. But Ciryl Gane is a durable guy. He knows how to absorb shots, and he's built for heavyweight. Like you said, he couldn't make 185. I don't even think he could make 205.
No.
He's so big, and he also engages on his own terms better than almost anybody. Like, if he doesn't like the look that he sees, he's going to jump back, he's going to move, he's going to create some space. They're going to be in the big cage, so he's going to have plenty of room to avoid Pereira if he wants to. But what makes this interesting for me, when you're talking about Alex Pereira, is we've seen Alex have a lot of success being a very patient fighter, a counter striker, somebody who can close distance slowly, use micro steps to close distance on you, and then, of course, get into a firefight exchange where he's landing the bigger shots and having the better opportunities. But Ciryl Gane really doesn't play that game. He'll stomp your lead leg. He'll use a jab. He'll use a body jab. Every now and again, if he feels comfortable, he'll start to extend on those combinations and let his hands go a little bit. But Alex Pereira is going to be the guy that has to push the pace and come forward. And we did see a ton of success in the Ankalaev rematch. He was able to go out there and not have an MMA fight with Ank, but go out there and get into a fist fight with him. He was not looking to compete with Ankalaev. He was looking to beat up Ankalaev. And I'm wondering if Alex Pereira is going to go in with the same mindset of, I got to get across this cage and beat up Ciryl Gane, or if he's going, you know what, Cyryl's going to be durable. He's going to see these shots. He also doesn't engage and feel like he gets stuck against the cage like Ankalaev. So am I going to be able to go across this cage and just implement my will on this guy, or am I going to have to play a point game for the first few rounds, zap his energy, deal damage to his legs, his body, his head, everywhere, and then find my finish? Or is he going to go, look, I had so much success against Ankalaev, I'm going up, I'm going to have more power in my hands. Poatan stands for hands of stone in Portuguese, to what I understand. So is he going to try to put those hands of stones on Ciryl Gane early? If he does that, I see Ciryl Gane evading, using his footwork. He's better at moving laterally than Ankalaev is. Ankalaev got his back put up against the cage and he had nowhere to go. Ciryl Gane is not really the same type of fighter as that. He likes to get to the center of the octagon, and then he'll take one step backwards if you apply pressure, but then immediately he's picking a side to go to. And it's not like he stays in his fight position, which can sort of limit your mobility. He'll actually get out to where he's just like sideways and side shuffling. And I always tell people, like, the fastest way to get out of harm's way isn't to stay in your fight stance. If somebody's throwing big shots at you, take one step backwards, and then you can almost use like football style jukes and maneuvers to get away, create a little bit of distance, and then find an opening on the cage to go stand and reset to re-engage. So I'm really interested in seeing which Pereira comes out. If Pereira comes out and tries to do a point fighting match with Ciryl Gane, I think he's going to lose this fight. If he goes out there and tries to make it a fist fight, I think his chances go up. But if he shows his cards too early and tries to go exactly at Ciryl Gane the way he did at Ankalaev in the rematch, I think he's going to give Ciryl Gane too much information, and Ciryl Gane's going to pick up on the reads, pick up on when he does, really try to close the show and finish the night with his striking. So I'm really leaning towards Ciryl Gane to win this fight. I think this is going to be maybe the only fight on the card that goes the distance, and this is going to be a 5-round fight too. So Pereira does have power all the way through the full 25 minutes, but Ciryl Gane also has a lot of power, and he's more of a point striker, but he can land some serious shots. If Israel Adesanya can knock out Alex Pereira, believe me, Ciryl Gane can also knock out Alex Pereira. I'm leaning towards Ciryl Gane to win this one by decision. I think it's going to be a very close fight. I think the first few rounds are going to be calculated and measured, and as long as Alex Pereira doesn't find that early KO like he did over Ank, which I'm not predicting, and I don't see I don't see a high likelihood of that happening. I think we're going to see a full 25 minutes out of these two, but the heavyweight is going to beat the newcomer to the heavyweight division.
There we go. Well, I'm going to differ with you again. I like Alex Pereira. I think we talked about Derrick Lewis in the last fight being the heaviest hitter in UFC history.
Right.
I think that heavyweight Alex Pereira may give Derrick Lewis a run for his money. I think we've never seen Alex Pereira at 258 pounds. He says he's going to be a little bit lighter than that come fight day. Let's say 250.
Yeah.
No weight cut, just ready to go, hydrated, not depleted in any fashion. We don't know how powerful that Alex Pereira is going to be, but we can only imagine that it's going to be the most powerful Alex Pereira we've ever seen.
For sure.
Which is scary. And Ciryl Gane does fight with his chin high a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So he fights a little hands low, a little chin high. And Alex Pereira has 25 minutes to find the shot on him.
Right.
I think he's going to use powerful leg kicks. He's going to use that pendulum leg kick that he does really well.
Yep.
He's going to work a good jab to the head, good jab to the body. And I think his biggest success is not going to be the hook. I think it's going to be opening up for that power two.
Yeah.
And that power two may be what lands on Ciryl, but Ciryl tends to kind of back up and go straight back when he gets hit,
Yep.
which is where I see the hook coming. And I think that we could see Alex Pereira pop Cyryl's head back with the straight and then catch him with the hook. We also know he can switch kick. He switch kicked Jiri Prochazka to sleep. So I just feel like over 25 minutes time with a durable and non-depleted Alex Pereira, Ciryl Gane is a good fighter, very good striker, but he can find the shot that ends the night, which is why I'm going to say third or fourth round KO. Alex Pereira makes history, and I know it's an interim, and I hate that it's an interim, but still a triple division UFC champion, the first person to ever do it on the White House lawn will be Alex Pereira, and new come Sunday evening.
And do you agree with Dana that if he wins that, he will be the GOAT?
No,
Yeah,
I don't.
I don't either,
Yeah.
but I do love the sentiment to that, and I think that it's very noteworthy, and it's certainly worth discussing that if he can go get this third belt, he now puts himself in even more rare air, right? We've had, 11 or 12 double champs in the UFC. Conor McGregor started all that, so they've all come after him, but we've never had a triple champion, and regardless of it being an interim, that's still a very big feat for him. I can't wait to see this fight. I think it's going to be the most technical fight out there, but one thing I'll say about Pereira is he has to get inside boxing range. If he can get past the long kicks and the long jab of Ciryl Gane and make this a dirty boxing match and get inside and get nasty and throw his hooks and stuff, I can see him finding the KO. But I just don't see Ciryl Gane willing to engage for long enough for Alex to get that done. If he does get it done, it'll happen late in the fight, but I'm just predicting that Ciryl Gane being so light on his feet for a full 25 minutes is going to be the problem. It may be the most boring fight on this card, but I also think it's going to be the most technical and highest display of striking levels.
There we go. And that brings us to the main event of the evening, just about an hour into the episode.
Let's
I think this
go.
is the longest main card prediction we've ever done because this entire thing is a main card. It's a 7-fight main card. So Ilia Topuria, one of the biggest favorites on the card. I think minus 450, almost minus 500, depending on the day. And Justin Gaethje, not many people giving him a lot of a chance here. He says he's working his offensive wrestling for this fight. He says he's coming to lay it all on the line. He's not coming to the White House to put on a boring fight. He said, I'm durable. I'm gonna get in there. I'm not afraid of his punches. I'm going to throw some big ones of my own. Let's see if he can withstand mine. Yeah. And I love the attitude. I do think the fight's going to be exciting for as long as it lasts. And obviously, we did a deep dive on this one, and we broke down the striking and where Justin may have some success. I think Justin can have some success in the clinch, right? Yep. So I think he can pop the head down a little bit, have some success with the uppercuts and the hooks. Ilia also has very dangerous uppercuts and hooks, though he has to be careful.
Yep.
Justin is sneaky with the head kicks, right? We saw the only time Ilia's ever been rocked in the UFC was by head kick. We saw Dustin in his last KO finish, I think it was, knocked out Dustin Poirier with a head kick. So there are some paths to victory for Justin. That said, I'm not going to bury the lead. I'm going to make my final prediction of the video. Ilia Topuria, second round knockout. But I think it's going to be interesting in the first round, and it may be wild in the first round. What do you think?
I think the round one's going to be insane. Ilia Topuria is so good, and he really has basically told everybody that I know exactly how I'm going to finish this fight. And the only thing that holds me back and maybe gives Justin Gaethje a little bit more of a chance is if Ilia gets stubborn and he starts solely focusing on what he says he's going to finish this fight with. Now, in a fight, anything can happen. And I don't predict that Ilia Topuria is going to go exclusively look for an uppercut. But I think if he is kind of setting the stage for I know exactly how it's going to happen, I'm going to post a video and show you guys exactly what I've been working on, and it's going to line up perfectly for Justin Gaethje. He's
like
not
the
gonna...
Conor McGregor, Jose Aldo in the back room,
Yeah. But apparently he's done it weeks ago. And so he knows exactly what's going to happen. Justin Gaethje is just like a human dynamite. He's going to go out there and he's going to make this fight interesting for as long as it lasts. Ilia Topuria said it's going to be done in one. He's going to get this fight done within 5 minutes. And if it goes into the second round, what does that mean? It's almost like that alone is a victory for Justin Gaethje. If he can go out there and at least get it into the second round, he'll be able to have that one thing over Ilia, right? Like, obviously Ilia is the favorite for good reason. He's undefeated. He's already changed his Instagram bio to 18-0. Before he was the champion, on his bio, he was the UFC champion. So the confidence is oozing out of this guy. It's almost at a point now where it's arrogance, but I'm still willing to ride the train with Ilia because everything he said so far has come to fruition. Every bit of his confidence has been warranted because of his performances inside the cage, and he's become a true prolific knockout artist in the UFC. Most even high-level boxers are coming out and saying Ilia is the best boxer in the UFC. And if you hear that coming from the likes of Terrence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez, you hear those guys talking about how good Ilia Topuria's grappling is, or boxing is. Yeah, they aren't talking about his grappling much, but if they're talking about how good his boxing is, that means that he's clearly got an advantage with the hands over Justin Gaethje. Now, Justin can make this interesting if he decides to offensively wrestle a little bit, but I would really suggest that he sets up his offensive wrestling with some striking. You have to gain Ilia's respect. I don't think Ilia has had very much respect for any of his opponents, especially since he started fighting for titles. He respects them as a human, but he doesn't respect their skills, and he hasn't really had anybody throw big enough power at him to give back the respect that they are showing him.
Except for Jai Herbert.
Yeah. And see, that was a long time ago. Charles Oliveira wasn't throwing anything of significant power except for that elbow. Ilia ate it pretty well. Volkanovski was throwing a bunch of kicks, but there was no power on him, and that's why Ilia was able to come in with confidence, close the distance, and then get the night done, getting his hand raised. Max Holloway, again, a volume puncher, but he realized very quickly that Ilia Topuria wasn't giving him any respect, and he was still walking him down. So even though the push kicks were happening, even though some good hands were being thrown his direction, he still wasn't putting enough pop on his shot. So Justin Gaethje really does need to put some serious power behind his shots in the very first round to make Ilia Topuria a little bit hesitant, respect him a little bit, and that will open up everything. Look, if it works so well for Ilia Topuria, sticking a stiff jab in everybody's face as soon as the round starts, as soon as any fight starts, he's landing his biggest shots, and then that's gaining all of the respect from his opponents. They're now biting on every feint. They're now, looking at every single aspect of his game. If there's nothing up top for him to score with his hands, which is his primary weapons, then what he does is chops the leg, and he's got very good leg kicks. We also know Justin Gaethje stands a bit bladed at times, and he's not much of a kick checker. He's not going to check kicks very well. We see guys with Muay Thai backgrounds that are really good at checking kicks. Justin Gaethje's not that guy. He could get spun around with some of those leg kicks that Ilia might start throwing. But again, the kicks for Ilia are a means to an end. It's only to slow down the wheels of his opponent just so he can start to track them up against the cage, get them trapped, and then let his hands go, because those are his biggest power punches. Come from his combinations, and once he's got you pressured up back against the cage. So I think Justin Gaethje can make this fight interesting. I certainly hope we see it go beyond one round, but I also have to take Ilia Topuria at his word. He's one of those guys that comes out and he's so confident that he knows what's going to happen. And I just see this fight going exactly how Ilia plans it. I want to see the American get his hand raised and get that Freedom 250 one-of-one UFC gold belt. Also, Justin Gaethje's probably last and only time to get an undisputed title. So his back's against the wall. But if there's anybody that has put more pressure on themselves than potentially Justin Gaethje for this fight, it's Ilia Topuria. He's talked a big game. Now he's got to walk out there and perform to the best of his abilities. But I do see him getting this done. I'm going to go one step further. It's a first round TKO. But when Justin Gaethje does dip down off a combination, Ilia Topuria is going to throw an uppercut. I think that's the secret move that he's been kind of keeping close to his vest, but he's going to let it all out on the White House lawn. We're going to see a first round TKO victory for Ilia Topuria, and still.
Clip that, because if Justin Gaethje does go out with dipping his head down and he's caught by an uppercut, we got to get that posted before the fight happens, and you will be considered a genius.
Yes,
if that happens.
They'll say, bro read the script. And if Justin Gaethje does win this, and I'm completely wrong in my prediction, I'd be happy to go out to the Onyx gym and get around to sparring in with him, because I'm sure he would want to beat me up a little bit for not giving the American as big of a chance as I should probably give the American.
Well, the only American that has a chance to win the Freedom 250 belt,
yeah,
which is pretty incredible. Like, there's 4 people fighting. The only one that's American by birth is Justin Gaethje. So, you know, a lot of people are going to want to see him get that belt wrapped around his waist. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen. And I think that's a perfect place to leave this.
Yeah, it kills me to say that Justin Gaethje isn't going to win this, being the only American given the opportunity to get that belt. But unfortunately, I just see Ilia Topuria being a little bit too much for him, and the durability is a big question for Justin Gaethje. We've seen him knocked out many times. Ilia Topuria is still undefeated, and that's just a big problem for me. I can't wait to see this one.
There we go. Guys, we said it in the beginning of the video, but Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we got the live stream post-press conference on Friday. We got the live stream post-ceremonial weigh-ins on Saturday. And, of course, the Fight Companion on Sunday. Make sure you come hang out with us for at least one of them, but we'd love to see you for all three. And we will see you there.
Peace.